Welcome back to Beyond the Uniform. I'm Justin Asiri, and my goal is to help military veterans and their families succeed in their civilian career. Today's episode number 311 with Chris Baity.
Usually the running joke is I play with dogs. I play with and train dogs. But to be honest, it's we're taking every dog that we could potentially get our hands on, either it's a disabled veteran or a veteran family. Whatever it takes, we're training dogs to be the best dogs they can be. And a lot of times that we're able to make them service dogs for their disabled need or their family's need. Meaning the dog may do medication reminders, you may assist with mobility or motility, picking up objects, opening and closing doors, providing tasks and things that a caregiver would, and now they have a dog that's trained to do it, and just assisting in social situations or keeping that veteran on a routine and a schedule.
My primary intention for this episode is to raise awareness around a great cause, which is SemperK9.org. We spend the bulk of this interview talking about how Chris and his team are training service animals to support veterans, either with physical or emotional needs. It's really inspiring to see and to hear Chris's story. And so while we are primarily focusing on the organization and how you can help spread awareness to help other veterans or contribute either your time or resources to support a really worthwhile cause, I'd love for you to really pay attention to the extraordinary example that Chris is in terms of two things. First of all, someone who is really living in alignment with their values. And that's not easy. He talks about how he and his family have gotten by on ramen at times and made a lot of financial sacrifices to build this nonprofit, which is doing a really good work in the world. But that's not easy to do. And so I think he's a great example of that. And then second of all, I think he's a great example of someone who in the Marine Corps built up career capital, outside of the military continued to hone and refine that career capital, and then went on to forge his own nonprofit. And I think it's just a great example of how you can leverage your military experience on the other side. As always, at beyondtheuniform.org, you'll find show notes with a link to everything we discuss, as well as a text transcript of the entire episode thanks to Kathleen Dillon. You'll also find over 300 episodes just like this, all for free at beyondtheuniform.org. So with that, let's dive in to my conversation with Chris. Well, joining me today in Woodbridge, Virginia, my guest is Christopher Baity. Chris, welcome to Beyond the Uniform.
Hello, thank you.
So for listeners, here's the quick background on Chris. He is the co-founder and executive director of SemperK9 Assistance Dogs. He served in the Marine Corps as a 5812 military working dog handler and specialized search dog team leader for over 7 years, including 3 combat tours in Iraq with explosive detection dogs. After his military service, he spent a year doing government contract work in Afghanistan, about 3 years doing contract work with a detection dog in and around Washington, D.C. He also completed a 9-month internship with a national nonprofit to create a program training rescue dogs to be service dogs. He was awarded the Washingtonian of the Year for 2017 by Washington Magazine and selected as Evan Williams' American-Made Hero. So maybe to start things off, Chris, you bump into someone, maybe a fellow Marine Corps vet on the street, and he says, hey, Chris, what do you do for a living? How do you answer that these days?
Usually the running joke is I play with dogs. I play with and train dogs. But to be honest, it's, we're taking every dog that we could potentially get our hands on, either it's a disabled veteran or a veteran family. Whatever it takes, we're training dogs to be the best dogs they can be. And a lot of times that we're able to make them service dogs for their disabled need or their family's need.
Where did this come from? So what was the kind of driving force behind starting SemperK9 Assistance Dogs?
More than likely, we've always said it was need. I needed something outside of the government contracting world. I needed, hey, I'm training dogs to do their best potential. How can we do something that's useful, fill a hole in the veteran industry? And it really was providing service dogs that are specially and individually trained for them, their lifestyle, whether they're active duty, whether they're in the med board process, or even post transition into civilian life. So we try to give them, opportunities within their veteran community and within assisting our organization. Gives them kind of an opportunity to be able to give back. But we're training as many service dogs in training as we can handle at a time, and a lot of these veterans are training dogs for other veterans, and they're training dogs that could potentially become their service dog.
How many dogs is that from time to time?
Right now we're scaled for 10 to 20 dogs a year. And I think we currently have 18 service dogs in training. I'm in the process of placing dogs with veterans between now and their graduations. Their next graduation is sometime in November, maybe beginning at the end of October, but have their graduation. So I'm essentially starting to place those dogs with the veterans, and the veterans are using the dogs in their everyday lives in preparation for essentially graduation week. And we're adding new things to the way we're training dogs. We're making sure we've catered that dog's abilities, as well as what we're training the veteran how to handle the dog, specifically to their disabled needs and the lifestyle that they want to live.
Can you give a couple examples? Like, what are some examples of what these dogs are doing to support the veteran?
We generally use the disability mitigating tasks, as a whole, meaning the dog may do medication reminders, you may assist with mobility or motility, picking up objects, opening and closing doors, pushing buttons, things like that. If that veteran's particularly in a wheelchair, providing, tasks and things that a caregiver would, and now they have a dog that's trained to do it and bond with them. And a lot of what we train our dogs is also, with post-traumatic stress, traumatic brain injury, and military sexual trauma. Meaning we're training the dogs towards psychological health, which could include reacting to certain behaviors. It could be facilitating certain behaviors. It could be just assisting in social situations, or keeping that veteran on a routine and a schedule, just like a guide dog does for someone who's is blind or has limited visibility. Just like a hearing dog, but I affectionately call them mental health mobility service dogs.
I love the thought of this holistic approach, where it seems like there is the physical component, which obviously makes sense, but also the emotional, mental, psychological component. And it seems like both of those are equally valuable to holistically address supporting the veteran.
Yeah, and there's a lot of weight being added to what you call non-traditional treatments, or atypical treatments for any disability. There's daily advancements within the medical world as far as the pharmaceutical side of what we do, but even that indirect type of therapy, whether it's just animal-assisted activities or even animal-assisted therapy. But we're teaching dogs to provide tasks and work that are very relatable to what a caregiver would provide. So, anything that helps us accomplish our mission, which is just to enhance the quality of life of disabled veterans. And a lot of that is with the, I hate to say that, as many programs as we're currently running with, whatever dogs we could potentially get our hands on and we can, afford at the time.
What does your day-to-day life look like? Could you give listeners a sense of kind of what maybe a typical day looks like, or what sorts of things you're doing during the week?
Unfortunately, I serve several hats within the hierarchy of SemperK9, so I kind of had to juggle my day between being an executive director, which is a lot of phone calls and emails, and I hate to say Facebook Lives, things like that I've got to really start doing just to promote what we're doing. And it's a lot of things that I've held back from. But day to day, I'm taking care of. I have a personal dog, as well as I have a facility dog, which is was one of our first service dogs in training, and he couldn't quite be a service dog, and and he was a good fit for us bringing in new dogs. So when we have new puppies here, or have a new service dog in training, it's essentially I start every day like I was a disabled veteran, teaching this dog exactly how I want them to help me. and I'm pulling out the behaviors that they're good at, through positive reinforcement, using treats, direction training, showing them exactly what objects mean and how they work, and finding what that dog is good at, whether it's pushing a button, opening, closing doors, picking up objects, getting this or that, or what we call Velcro work, which is, just being very attentive to the handler and, providing pressure, following obedience commands, jump up on their lap, hey, if you see me tapping my foot, or you see me, fidgeting, biting my fingernails, even an emotional outburst, crying, screaming, yelling, things like that, where the dog tries to, just be there for them. And it may be through pressure, it may be through tactile stimulation, but, it could be distracting the veteran from and making them aware of their behavior. And a lot of that from the home standpoint, is being able to get that veteran out into public and doing things that are make them a good citizen, make them a good, representative of their military careers.
That's really incredible. I mean, it makes me think of I can imagine how people can get stuck in an emotional response, especially people who have been in pretty extreme situations in the military, and can kind of get be in that spot, and to have the dog be a way of like bringing them back to the present moment, bringing them back to where they are, rather than wherever their head is at that moment. That's pretty powerful, as well as the thought of just getting them outside, getting them interacting with people, which is incredible. Could you share any, maybe not success stories, but like some of the impact that you've seen from the canines?
As a whole, as an organization, being a nonprofit, our connection to the veteran community is what I really pride ourselves on. That we're trying to find, any type of lifestyle that a veteran has. That's high. I hate to use the terms high functioning and low functioning, but really I think our majority of our impact comes to just the families. We're unique that we cater the training, we kind of cater the dog. We use rescue dogs and even purebred dogs, but we have such a broad type of temperament and types of dogs that these veterans can that fits their lifestyle. They look, every one of our dogs kind of looks different, because almost every one of the veteran that comes through looks different. Their lifestyle is different. It doesn't matter it could be in the same branch, same unit, or in the same mission, got injured in the same, incident, and they come out and they just happen to, they're going to have different lives. They're going to want to lead different lives. So, we try to cater our dogs specifically to that. And a majority of our veterans are their families. Some of them work, some of them, are retired and do philanthropic work, or they may volunteer in their veteran community, whether it's through, American Legion of VFWs, but a lot of them also come back to us. Many of our, and I've seen it all over the service dog industry, especially the veterans, the service dogs being provided to veterans, that there's an involvement there, that you've got them learning to train dogs, and they may go on and help their neighbor who's, Vietnam veteran. They help them try to train. And another thing that makes our organization unique to that is, I'm trying to teach, we're not a schoolhouse, but, I like to say that every veteran that leaves here is he knows how his dog was trained. He was involved with the training of several service dogs. He's seen the physical effects that dogs can help assist with, and he's also seen the psychological, and that psychiatric, assistance, whether it's, specifically with what the dog was doing, or just the fact that veteran can take the dog out in the public. That dog is, perfectly well behaved, and he's also an ambassador to other service dogs and organizations. So there's a lot of uniqueness to it, but, it really comes down to, helping those veterans become great citizens and maxing out their potential, in any way that we can. But I see, as a side note, I'd see the lives of the children change. There's a lot of talk about, that secondary post-traumatic stress, that comes from children. And, a veteran who gets out of the basement, doesn't drink so many beers, is so, aggressive and snappy. He's got something to do. He's motivated because he's got this dog that he is required to, maintain training and maintain tasks and keep the work going, and recording all this, just very, very similar as they would have operated in the military. So it transitions really well to the civilian world, gives them goals, kind of gives them something to do. And then, the side to that is a lot of our veterans and their families get involved with us, as volunteers or as staff members, and as we're growing, we're able to provide, opportunities for veterans to, work with other veterans and help train more dogs. And the more trainers we have and the more dogs we have, the more potential service dogs we can provide those who need them.
That's great. And you mentioned rescue shelters. Could you talk a little bit more about where you're getting the dogs from and how that works?
A vast majority of our dogs come from our rescue partner, which is Operation Paws for Homes, and I like to call them a satellite rescue, meaning they pull dogs from all over the world, but they've pulled dogs from all over the U.S. on a regular basis. So it gives me a lot of puppies to look at, a lot of younger dogs that are, before they've been taught any bad behavior. It's what I like to call the cream of the crop. I get from my location. But we also get dogs that are donated from breeders. We love labs, especially black labs and yellow labs. I've worked with so many different dogs and different breeds, and I teach, I train, and I assess every dog, for their potential. I don't really care what their background was. I want to know, and I want the healthiest dogs possible. And I'm looking into 2020, where we're probably can hopefully double the production of service dogs that we're currently doing to almost 50 dogs a year, because I've got more veterans to help than I have dogs available. So it's important that we find a lot of any dog out there that has a good potential. We have zero problem. My team has no problems with reading about the dog. Hey, tell me what makes this dog a great family pet that could potentially pass our our training and our testing. So, that's the kind of the thing we try to promote, but it really comes down to trying to find as many good dogs as we can and train them to be great service dogs for veterans and their families.
How long does that process take of receiving a dog and training them and then eventually passing them on to the veteran?
It changes. I used to use different ranges of dogs. I hate make 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, all kinds of ranges. But, I've learned, 40 plus dogs in, that it all just depends on, every dog is so different. I just went and visited a service dog organization down in Florida that I really respect, Canines for Warriors, and they're doing a phenomenal job down there. And, I got to see how we, two organizations that started with the same goal in mind, we had conversations. They had seen our dogs, we'd seen their dogs. We'd been working within the service dog industry to make it better and easier for veterans. And we created the Association of Service Dog Providers for Military Veterans. We looked at how can we change legislation to help these veterans, to help them get funding, and help these organizations that are providing these dogs free of charge to veterans, and saying, hey, there's a lot of veterans that are losing life to suicide, to problems just adjusting to the military transition. We're not spitting out as many veterans as many service members retiring out and getting out of active service that are doing things. There are great veterans out there running great companies, but you see a theme that these veterans run their own business because they've shown that military model works even in the civilian world. And and I hate to say, a veteran really can only understand another veteran. No matter what branch or what service unit, what lifestyle, what back farm of Kentucky or small town in Georgia, coming from Manhattan, whatever it is, no matter, they come together, they learn all the same, they all dealt with the same thing, they all made that sacrifice to go out and better their community, better their family, protect their country, whatever it is whatever reason they joined the military for. There are a lot of service dog organizations and veteran service organizations out there that are, veterans are, great within those positions, so, you also have a lot of veterans that do not function well in that civilian life, and giving them opportunities to do something, but also just finding the niche within the civilian world that works best for them and their challenges, their limitations, but giving them a chance to succeed. And and go on. I think I completely blew off your question, by the way.
No. This is great. One question that came up when you were saying that is, who is eligible for these service dogs?
So all of our dogs are free of charge to military veterans. Many organizations put limitations on, area that they served, on, where they live, what location, are they able to travel, whether they have other dogs in the home, whether they have children, married, where they live in the country, work lifestyle. There's a ton of things that we have to look at as an organization when we're deeming whether, we can help them. So every organization is different, but personally at SemperK9, it's, a disabled veteran who, has gotten approval from a doctor, a physician that has seen them over a period of time, regardless of their disability. And, and they're essentially recommending, hey, what they know about service dogs fits the need of this person's disability, fits their lifestyle, and they're recommending to us, and it's that organization, whether it's a nonprofit or a for-profit, our dogs are all free of charge because we're a nonprofit. It's built into our bylaws that we do not buy, breed, or sell dogs. We do all the fundraising. We do apply for grants, whether it's in the community and government grants as well. But vast majority of our funding comes from just the public assistance. Meaning charities and organizations, funds, that are privately ran, that provide money for organizations like ourselves. But people who just meet us and know us and love what we do, and they provide, those personal donations. We have, tons of opportunities to fundraise. I love our community engagement, because we give our volunteers an opportunity to go out and go to these events, see things, attend them. They get to be as a patron, but they get to enjoy it, and they get to show off our dogs. And they get to promote what we do, and that's what's the best part of being the executive director of an organization like this is, I get praise for everything everybody does before me or under me, but purely, I give all of our volunteers and all of our charity partners, anybody who's assisted SemperK9 in any way, whether it's directly or indirectly through financial support or through their volunteerism, that we're successful because of them. A big thank you to all their hard work. I've had to transition, from the, a lot of times I was the first one who trained the dog, for 2 weeks, 2 months, 6 months, whatever it was, and turn him to a canine coach, and I would start the next couple of dogs or whatever. And now I've been essentially ousted by everybody who's our volunteer group has grown so large that they're pretty much training dogs. They don't even need me. I feel bad, but I've done too good of a job training them how to train service dogs, and I get to be the executive director a little bit more, but I still have a firm connection, and I train every single veteran that comes through here, and and they know from the beginning that I'm putting my word on that dog. I promise I'll always be there for you and that dog as long as you make yourself available to me, in the organization, no matter what services we provide in 5 years, 10 years, a lifetime program. They're always welcome to come back. We're welcome to help them, continue to train their dog, make it even better, but also giving them, volunteer opportunities and ambassador and mentorship opportunities. We're getting too big. This podcast will last this recording will end up lasting 3 hours if I try to explain it all.
That's great. It's a sign of success that you're being forced out of your role and into the more of that executive director role. If someone listening is fired up for themselves or for someone they know, and they think, man, this would really benefit me or this person, what does the process look like of, from hearing this podcast to actually interacting with your team or getting on a list or making their way towards getting that service animal?
For us, just the best way to apply for a service dog is going through our website, which is SemperK9.org. There's plenty of opportunities to do a bunch of different things. If it's a veteran who's applying for a service dog, either reading everything about us, or any organization that's applying for a service dog, read as much as you can, find out about it, do your research, check them out. We put everything on our website. I've tried to do interviews like this so I can better explain it, but they apply for a service dog. We deem whether they're eligible, and we're able to provide a service dog for them. They get approved, and unfortunately they go on a waiting list that is continually growing. But I try to work with the veteran I can work with the quickest and the fastest, that I have a dog available for them, training as many dogs as I can. They apply for a dog, and we essentially set a date that, hey, I can start working with you on this date, and we'll work with them, from then on, and I try to, make it, veterans who are waiting or on that waiting list, so we have different events that they can attend. We have different, I wouldn't say volunteer opportunities, but we have, they're open and welcome to come and see our dogs, meet our dogs, talk to our people, continue researching us. They may have applied for dogs from 4 different organizations. And I'm not saying I want to, because we're collectively, the industry is sharing these dogs, and we're, everybody does has a different way of doing it, because it's just really hard to reproduce the same thing over and over and over, because veterans change, over time. But, we work with veterans for 6 months, sometimes as little as 6 weeks. I'd like to be able to see that, say that, by next year, SemperK9, we can take a veteran and within 20 days that I can make that veteran a service dog handler, and make them, and serve them even faster and quicker, and hopefully, a little more efficiently. And that's what we've spent the last 5 years trying to fine tune and get to that. And I'm really forward to 2020, because I know we're going to do great things. And I got a lot of veterans to help. I hate to say I have a long waiting list, and it's killing me to the core to see, the applications continue to come in. And, I don't want to, just dissuade anyone from, applying for a service dog, but the waiting list across the industry is long. So it's going to take, a village. Every corner of the country is going to have to band together and find the best dogs, and find these dogs, and provide, and find them a training organization that they can go to, and and potentially become a service dog. Or, the money is out there to be spent on dogs. Just finding dogs is the hardest part, because the veteran applicant list is growing really, really fast. Every day we got a veteran coming out, or veteran getting injured, that is eventually going to need a service dog, and we can't train dogs fast enough. So we need dogs.
I'm appreciating the complexity of your business, and that every dog is unique. Every dog's background is unique. Their capabilities is unique. And as you said, every veteran's needs are unique. And the thought of juggling these 2 balls simultaneously, of having applicants, having dogs, being the matchmaker, training the person as well. It seems overwhelming. And I'm just, in the back of my mind, I'm like wondering, like, what is the cost for a single dog? You're talking about potentially a year and a half to train a dog. In my mind, I'm like, man, this seems like $100,000 plus just for one dog to be placed. Are you open to sharing, like, what the costs look like for training a single animal?
It varies. I think, and I couldn't tell you exact numbers, I do remember how the progression has gone as we've gotten better at it, as the organization has grown. But, I mean, you could easily say it takes $20,000 to train every service dog, but that's an industry average. It's the organization's job and my job to make sure, hey, can we train this dog faster? Can we train him cheaper? Is there ways that we can cut our costs? And I think we as an organization sit at the rate that it takes us to spend 12 to 15 to 18 months to train that dog from, a puppy. It takes $15,000+ easily. So a lot of it's time, or it really comes to, finding dogs. I hate to say that's always going to be my problem, and I think that's from every organization I've talked to, finding dogs and training them fast enough is the hardest part. I'd like to say, $20,000 is the industry average. I know the PAWS Act, and hopefully not to misquote it, the new reintroduction, the way it's written, it will provide up to $25,000 each dog. So these organizations continue to replicate the same thing, whether they have a breeding program, or they have a rescue program, or, whether the veteran is this type of disability, no matter what it is, that industry average is only going to probably get higher, as time progresses. So it's our job to kind of find out where we can trim the fat, if you will. But to really say, what is the actual cost of a service dog, and how are these organizations getting that money replaced so they can continue, training the next dog?
Well, that leads into another question I had. So let's say someone's listening and your mission resonates, or this cause resonates. What's a way that they can support you right now?
Our website has, plenty of ways to volunteer. There's usually some form of volunteer meeting coming up, whether it's a coordinators meeting or a volunteer orientation. We also have events that are going on year round. Some of them are regular, some of them are quarterly, some of them are purely based on the community engagement, whether it's motorcycle clubs, whether it's fundraisers, whether it's a bunch of events that the organization has going on to help us grow our mission and help us build our facility. It's there's plenty of ways to get involved. Almost all of them start with the website. That's just 2019. I hate to say, but give us a call. We'd gladly answer questions. Shoot us an email. Contact. There's somebody manning the emails at all times. And if you have a question, or all of our 990s are on our website. I think we're still waiting on our audit to come in, so we'll have everything out there. That shows we're not blowing money and having big old parties and doing crazy. You know who you are.
Could you share a little bit more about the family integration program?
Yeah, so when we first started the organization, we had two rules that we were always going to stick to that would never change. We would never charge veterans for anything, any of the services we're providing. We would never charge them for a dog. And then we would ensure that we were thinking about the families. We were including the families as much as we possibly could. And really the family integration came from just trying to find something for the spouses. They were very interested in what was going on, which I understand. They had a lot of questions about, what do I do? How do I get taught this? And we started to include that early on to say, hey, we're providing this to veterans, so you can get out and work. That may only be 8, 9, 10 hours a day. What are we worried about the time that he's at home? That he's trying to be a father on the weekends, that he's trying to be a spouse, he's maybe taking care of several kids. He may be a stay-at-home mother or father. There was a lot of things that we wanted to take into account, and that's where that individual training comes. It may be providing, some direction, some opportunities, some engagement with the spouse or the family, including them in the training. So I'm not just sending them off, okay, now I want you to go home and you just learned this stuff, and I want you to go home and teach everybody at home that, which works for a lot of veterans. It's been proven that as a very successful model. I'd love to be able to adopt that as part of what we do. But I see that, families need to be involved, and kind of gives us a way to keep track of the veteran without having to pressure them too much. It gives us opportunities for them to continue to practice. We're a small organization. We've only graduated, we've only finished 40 service dogs. So in that time, we've sent dogs out there to be that, but we're going against organizations who have hundreds of dogs out there, and some may be good, some may be bad. So our impact isn't as great on a grand scale. Excuse me. Our impact isn't as grand as I would like it to be, but we're trying to get there. And and I think the more we train, the more more dogs we produce, we'll set the example within the industry. And I would love to see or all organizations, as much as you possibly can, to cater, to provide something for the families. You will see a drastic increase in the improvement of your dogs and of your veterans by giving those spouses, giving those family members, giving them something else to do. I'm not saying copy us, but I love our family integration program. I love getting hugs from children, and handshakes and hugs from family members, and emails and pictures. And look what my husband would have never done a year ago. I couldn't get him out of the basement. Now we're out on a cruise, or flying all over the place and doing things, and really being involved with their children and the upbringing, and not just compartmentalized and avoiding the future. And of course, there's always that I think it's the pink elephant in the room, that veteran suicide is a big challenge. It is I hate to use the phrase, it's a national crisis. It could easily be seen as something as is infecting every corner of the U.S., all 50 states and all its territories. They're all over the world. I have service dogs that are on 4 different continents that do traveling all over the place, all over the U.S. But that's a small impact. And can they really get out there and show, and be seen, and doing videos like this where, there may be a veteran who catches this video and it's like, you know what, that's the one thing I did not think about, or it's the one thing I did not put weight into it. It's just because they may be in an area they haven't seen that dog, or haven't seen something, or didn't have a doctor that was wise to that type of, opportunity, or assistance, however you want to look at it.
Switching gears just a little bit, what advice do you have for listeners who aspire to one day start some sort of nonprofit? Any advice you'd give to them about how to approach that?
Oh yeah. So I read this question, and nobody's ever asked me like in this way, and I hear about and I see about organizations, especially nonprofits that pop up all over the place, and they're invaluable, I think, to any community, as long as they're doing the right thing, and I always, my answer's pretty much always been the same, that, you do your research, make sure you're doing, I hate to steal the Hippocratic Oath, or, summarize, that first do no harm. What we're doing is should be life changing. It should be altering their perception of the world. It should be assisting them in some form or fashion. So regardless of what kind of business or what nonprofit is or whatever it is, and even if it's training service dogs, don't try to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to copy the person right next to you, or this person or us, or but do your research. We spent a lot of time, preparing before we spent 9 months, pilot programming it, and started one dog at a time until we just got better and better at it. I didn't try to bite off more than I can chew. I promise it was very difficult. My wife and I went through, that Mark Cuban kind of mentality. Is, dude, I ate ramen noodles, and we cooked in the house every day, and we, there were a couple of times the power was out. It's a tough life. You have to jump into it. My wife, she technically had the idea and said this is what we should do. I said, well, if we're going to do it, we have to go all in. And we've always stuck that mentality. We've always got returned on our, on our efforts, and I'd love to see that continue to grow. And, for anyone out there that's potentially doing it, know that there's plenty of help out there, whether it's, organizations that provide, hey, I want to start an organization, I want to help you out, find what works best for you, something that you could stick to, don't let that dream fade away quickly because it became hard. Because I promise it's hard every day for me. I've a pain in my chest almost every day from just every little bit of it, because it's so rewarding. But it knows that I feel like a little weight lifted off my shoulder, but now I got to be better. I got to do better. I can't be, I can't stay in the same. I think I hate to say that's, I think what my perception of the nonprofit world was before I got into it was that it can be very lucrative, or it can be just, I'm in poverty just because I want to dump everything I can into this to be able to give back. And, and I love that especially veterans and anybody who's willing to help out the veteran community, that you're willing to sacrifice, and I promise you will see the returns. Those stabs to the chest, those butterflies, that feeling you gets better. When you get to the point where it happens every day, and you start to get addicted to it, you want to do more. And sometimes I, neglect my family, in that case, and I hate it, but my wife and I, support each other wholeheartedly. We've seen, the way that, just what we that example we're setting. I'm not trying to be not trying to boast or anything like that, but I love running time I run into an organization that, has a very similar story to ours and is doing that, but it bugs me. It was like, oh, I could help you out, but you already did everything. I don't know. But either way, get involved, find out what works great for you. Don't let your dreams slip away. If you're going to do it, I promise you'll enjoy the rest. As long as you continue to do it, you will, and you should enjoy it, and you will enjoy it.
And I hope what comes through for listeners in this, like I think Chris, you're an exceptional example of someone who has found post-military service a calling. You've found a very strong purpose. You found something where you are directly seeing the impact of your work. And I hope listeners take away from this, it has not been easy. There's those times of ramen eating without power on and all these sacrifices that Chris and his family have had to make. And while he might not be flying around on corporate jets and, seeing this empire building financially, he is getting a level of satisfaction that I think is rare for me to hear from people on the show or off on the show, because he is doing great things in the world. And the one thing I wanted to just one of the last questions I wanted to ask is, I want to point out to listeners, like, Chris has had an incredible journey. And the thing that's also unique about his story is he's built up a lot of career capital around what he is doing. And I was hoping, Chris, you could just walk through briefly from the Marine Corps and afterwards, could you share a little bit more about your experience with dogs, with canines, and this work in the military and then outside of it?
I mean, I could tell just a long-winded story, but I mean, I joined the Marine Corps right after boot camp. I knew I wanted to work. I've always wanted to work with animals. I've always wanted to, do something. I just kind of got lucky. I wanted to serve my country. I was in the Marine Corps ROTC, and I didn't really want to go to college, yet. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and I joined. I would say I joined the Marine Corps on a whim, but I just happened to get lucky and find out that there were dog handlers. Early on in the process, I was like, oh, that's what I want to do. That looks really, really cool. And I've kind of stuck with that. I did 8.5 years, active duty. I spent the first year in school and finished up at canine school and hitting the fleet with a dog, or hitting the fleet and picking up a dog and going duty station to duty station for 8 years. And essentially I volunteered for anything. I didn't really care, wherever we're going, let's do it. I'm down. I hated myself for it because I kind of looked like just too much of a follower. And when I got into leadership roles, it was very hard to let go of, like, sure, man, I don't care. You just tell me what to do. I'm down. And but I got to do as much as I really wanted with dogs. I got to take them, all over the place, including Iraq too many times, but I got to see all kinds of different dogs. I had a really good career of working with a lot of good people. I sometimes will give homage to that, that old, if I saw farther than most, is because I stood on the shoulder of giants, however it was phrased. But, I met a lot of really good dog trainers and dog handlers out there, in every branch of the service. And I got to see, and I could easily copy a handler, can you do this? Sure can. And that just made my life really easy as a handler, and along the way, I think I developed just a kind of an ability to pick apart, what was going wrong with the handler or how his dog was working or what could be fixed, and just have spent the better part of 18 years now, through military and contracting and, civilian world. And, I trained puppies for a year and a half. That about drove me crazy, but it makes what I do now very, very easy because I know what to expect. I saw enough litters, come through, that we're doing all kinds of different things to kind of just figure out how you can direct that dog to what makes them even better than what you want them to do. So, I spent, I got stuck in the dog world and I love it. I've tried to leave and I keep getting pulled back and, things get better and I've got to see it evolve and, my style has evolved and I've just picked up as much as I could along the way till, I am where I am now, where I'm really just a problem solver. All I do is make sure the bus is going in the right direction, and we're full of gas pretty much. And I'd love to get more back into the dog training side of it. I'd really tell my team that, hey, I'm just going to start doing more and more dogs. But, I went from the Marine Corps, contracting work, for the government, and then I did entomology dogs, bedbug dogs for a while. And I did, managed and worked in a couple of kennels and, small breeders and large breeders. And, I got to be a trainer for, several years before I was ever actually required to train a dog on my own. So, I got the cheap way to become, a trainer, I guess. That everything was pretty much given to me for free, or just because of the way I was, willing to do the work. And I've gone from, doing a lot of detection stuff, which I still love, to teaching dogs to how to be like a super awesome family pet that gets to go out in public and does all these cool things. And it takes a lot to manage a lot of dogs. I've never managed more, 18 dogs before. And, I imagine I'll be doing more as time goes on, but it becomes busy work a lot of the time. But my career has just been sticking with dogs, training dogs, going to every school and volunteering for everything I possibly could. And so now I don't even have a dog signed to me, which is sad. I'm going to start grabbing more dogs just so I can, this is mine. I need a dog. You guys have given me dogless, kept me dogless for too long.
That's awesome. I always like to keep the last question a little bit more open-ended, which is, what have we not covered that you want to make sure listeners know before we wrap up?
I could go on for days. That's a tough one. Let me see, not to mess up the interview at all. We've covered a ton. I love being able to do interviews like this. I always try to end everything, and if it's a broken record for people who have heard me do interviews in the past or just talk about our organization, is, be involved. I always say, get involved, no matter whether you're young, old, you served, you didn't, you busy or not. Be involved with your community. Find something that you can give back to. That's how we'll really make America great again. If you want to be honest, is, everybody needs to be involved. Selflessness goes a long way. I promise you, because selfishness goes twice as far. It's word of mouth spreads. I promise. So if it's not getting involved, find something that you love, and even through social media. If you're stuck at home and that's the only thing you can do or only thing you want to do, then, I hate to promote, social media by saying, hey, share this, but, the interview that we're doing here, I found out, I'm sure through word of mouth some way, you get listeners and you get, anything you get involved with is going to help the next person. It takes I hate to say it again, that it takes a village, but, when it comes to any advice that I can possibly give you, it may be long-winded. It comes with a lot of effort. It's not easy for me to get out there and do these interviews on a regular basis, because I have my own challenges and desire to, I don't want to do that. So, for those who are watching, share this, share the Beyond the Uniform. Share the Beyond the Uniform name, the story, share past and previous articles, interviews, everything, find out what's going on in your area.
I love it. Chris, thank you for,
I'm sorry.
No, this is great. I appreciate your example of community involvement and giving back. I just really applaud you for putting yourself out there. Like, it sounds like the path that you are leading is not easy. It's not for the faint of heart. It's aligned with who you are, and it is making a dent in the universe. And I appreciate that. And I know that you've got a million demands on your time, so it means a lot that you would take time from your schedule to speak with me and the Beyond the Uniform audience. So thank you so much. And for listeners, as always, at our show notes at beyondtheuniform.org, We'll have links to everything we discussed. I just want to say that website one more time. It's SemperK9, K is in kilo, 9 is in the number, .org, SemperK9.org. If you or someone you know would benefit from one of their dogs, definitely check them out. Or if Chris and his organization resonates with you, one way to get involved with your community is to check out their website. And whether it's sharing on social media, whether it's volunteering, whether it's donating, there's no shortage of ways to contribute. And maybe you're at a point in your life where you don't have time. Maybe you can donate financially, or maybe you don't have money. Maybe you can donate through intros, through sharing, through referrals, things like that. But I would encourage you to check that out. So thank you so much, Chris.
Thanks so much, bud. I appreciate it. Let me know however I can. I'm looking forward to it coming out.
Surface.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Quick couple admin points. We release brand new episodes every single Monday and Thursday. Those are usually recorded about a month or so before they go live. Every Monday and Thursday, we have an interview, usually almost always with a military veteran about their civilian career. More and more, we're starting to add in experts who may not be veterans, but may have some expertise that will help the military veteran community. Saturdays, I typically post more of a behind the scenes episode, which is a free form format. I try to use what I'm calling a mullet format. And by that, I mean business up front, party in the back, talking through admin points, professional topics related to the podcast. It might be a conversation I had that week. It might have been an interview I had that week, but just trying to share things that are top of mind that may help you in more of a free form, straight from the heart format. And then the party in the back is the personal side of things, just kind of more free flowing thoughts on life, on improving oneself, just kind of whatever's going on in life, and trying to be authentic and honest about those things as well. Special thanks. We have an all volunteer army of people behind Beyond the Uniform making this possible. We do this on our lunch breaks, on our evenings, on our weekends, because we love the military community. We want to give back. We want to make a difference. We want that as part of the purpose in our life that we valued in the military. So special thanks to Steve Bain. Steve does pretty much everything. He helps secure guests. He does our newsletter. He keeps the reels rolling and keeps me sane. Kathleen Dillon, the first person to join our team. She writes text transcripts of every single episode. It's wild. She keeps up with 2 of these a week despite a demanding career and education right now. But those transcripts help us get more SEO value, helps her audience more. Andrew Woolridge is our data guru. He helps us understand the numbers, which is the easiest way for us to figure out how we can better support you, and adds kind of the data oversight for that. Rick Healy does all of our social media. He is gaining more and more of an audience for us by getting our videos, getting our podcasts out on social channels. The best way to stay in contact with us is if you go to beyondtheuniform.org, there is a newsletter. You'll have a little pop-up that comes up. You can put your email in. We email twice per month. We try to be respectful, but it is a great way to get appraised of upcoming events, upcoming interviews, promos where companies are giving discounts to Beyond the Uniform listeners, and more. This does cost money to put on. We are committed to not charging veterans directly, and the way that we kind of offset costs is through corporate sponsors. So if you know of a company that would like to get in front of a military audience and their families, that's one way that we can both add value to our members, but also offset the costs of Beyond the Uniform and give us a little bit of budget to start expanding what we're doing. So that's the best way you can help us. If that's not something that you can do, a positive review on iTunes is greatly appreciated. Have a wonderful week. We will be back Monday, Thursday, and Saturday with more interviews. And keep up the listening. Take care.